I don't know if I'm on yet. Okay. Everyone's meandering in. What a week. What a week. So the last part of our program today is our last keynote speaker. And I have the pleasure of actually introducing the person who will be introducing our keynote speaker. So Matt Norquist is the president and CEO of Linkage, and he has joined us here this week. Before he came to Linkage, which was only a year and a half ago, he ran the consulting for North America for Right Management, which is the consulting arm of a Fortune 100 company, Manpower Group. Before that, for several years, he oversaw the Global Insights team at Edelman, which is the largest privately held marketing agency in the world. For the first 10 years of his career at Gallup, he learned and studied the opinions and behaviors of leaders and individuals across the world. He has led client assignments in over 50 countries and worked with dozens of Fortune 500 companies. Matt's passionate about the advancement of women in leadership and has really demonstrated that at Linkage. There's 55% of our workforce at Linkage are women. We should applaud for that. And nearly half of our top 20 leaders are women. I've shared with many of you this week that I feel very fortunate to have my manager, Susan Brady, I view very much as a multiplier. As we learned our first day here about the multiplying effect, about sharing knowledge and investing in others and having a greater impact in that way. The amazing thing is that my manager has a multiplier as a manager. Matt is very much a multiplier. This was a photo that we took the other day, and obviously Susan's in the center. On the other side is Rachel Morango, who was introduced at the beginning of the program. She is the woman who held my role before she went out on maternity leave. And we're very excited to join her back in January. And our global programs team is excited to take the passion and the insights of everything we've done this week and taking it across the globe. And we have, in the background in this photo, our multiplier, Matt Norquist. Please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you, Carrie. Wow. Good morning, women of WIL. I want to say how honored I feel to be a part of the team that's been doing this. We don't do this program just for fun, although I have to say we have a lot of fun doing it. This is important work. I think it matters now maybe more than ever. I read a quote the other day from Grace Lee Boggs. It says, "You don't get to choose the times you live in, but you do get to choose who you want to be, and you get to choose how you think." Well, Linkage has been choosing to run WIL now for almost 20 years. We've been focused on this issue of advancing women for almost 20 years. And we do it because it matters. We have a passion and a commitment to advancing women in leadership. And not just because it's the right thing to do, because it's great for business, and because we believe embracing difference and having gender partnership is part of a winning formula. Before I introduce our next and final speaker, I want to take a few minutes to share a couple important thoughts. First off, I want to give a huge thanks to our Linkage team, our staff, our learning team leads, coaches. Can you, if you're part of the extended Linkage team, stand for a minute and let us just applaud you? Thank you, team. And I think you're only seeing about half of the Linkage team on their feet right now because the others are probably behind the scenes. But we had about 55 or 60 total people here this week supporting all of you. They put on a great experience. Secondly, I want to applaud each of you and your companies for making the commitment to be here for the last week and making the commitment to advancing your careers and advancing women in leadership. Third is today's Veterans Day. This is a day when we honor the women and men who have served our country, who have made sacrifices for our freedom and for our safety. These folks are brave. They've done a lot for all of us. So if you have served or are serving in the military, I'd just ask you to stand so we can recognize you as well. So I asked for the opportunity to introduce our next speaker, Dalia Mogahed. Her speech is being sponsored by McKesson. Make sure I get all my key points here. So McKesson's executive committee and operating teams are committed to ensuring women leaders across the company are learning, growing, and rising to greater levels of impact and responsibility. Their women's initiatives include women business leaders. This is focused on connecting senior executive women across the healthcare industry. Secondly, they are committed to WIL. There's 30 women here from McKesson focusing on advancing their own careers and advancing leadership at McKesson. They have employee resource groups, including Own It, which provides women personal and professional development, networking, as well as a broader understanding of the McKesson business. They also do diversity and inclusion State of the Union assessments to provide factual data and dispel diversity myths within the organization and inform enterprise strategy around diversity and inclusion efforts. It's their expectation that women fully engage and commit to these initiatives where appropriate, as well as take responsibility for their own development along the way. Can the leaders of McKesson stand up and make themselves be known? Thank you, McKesson. Do we have them here? They must be in the learning team still busy getting as much as they can out of the session. So we'll make sure to recognize them again at the end if they get back here. So Dalia and I have known each other for about 10 years, and I count her a personal friend. I call her when I've got things I don't know about another religion that I want to learn about. I call her when I want to hear a opinion about policy that's different from what I see on the news. She's brave, Dalia's brilliant, and I think what she has to talk about today is really relevant, especially right now. Dalia is the director of research at the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, where she leads work on studying Muslims in America. You might have seen her on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah. You might have seen her in her TED Talk that's had a couple of million views, or in her best-selling book, Who Speaks for Islam, or you might recognize her as an appointment to President Barack Obama. What she has to say is something we all need to hear, and not just hear. I think what she has to say is something we need to apply and really learn from. We first met on a consulting project. It was a leadership development program at an all-male company in Saudi Arabia. You heard that right. No women, all men. 15,000 person organization without a woman. Dalia stepped in and in short order became a close confidant to the CEO, who's one of the most influential Muslim businessmen on the planet. And she not only gained the trust of him and his team, but she also broadened their thinking, and through some, what I'd call very innovative thinking, was able to coalesce a group of the leading religious thinkers around the world on how we can create better collective understanding between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And we're talking world peace here, folks. This is not just about running a business a little bit better. We're talking about solving global issues that have been going on for millennia. And I would argue that much of the progress we've made on religious coexistence has to do with the work of inclusion and understanding that Dalia has led. She's met with presidents and prime ministers, with CEOs and entrepreneurs, and has helped all of us bolster our curiosity, and at the same time giving us tools to make us more aware and aligned. So Dalia, come up, tell us a little bit about your story, and close us out. Thank you for coming.
Wow. Thank you so much. Can we have another hand for Matt for that very generous introduction? And then how about a hand for the folks that have been serving us all week? Thank you very much to the serving staff. It is such an honor to be here addressing such a high-powered group of women. But actually, every time I clear security and arrive anywhere I travel, I'm pretty grateful. So it's really great to be here. But I braved TSA to be here because we have some critical work to do. You've heard from some really inspiring leaders this week. You've heard about being bold. You've heard about how to inspire commitment. You've heard about how to be a multiplier and how to seek them out. So you've got some amazing ideas. You have a real vision for what you want to do when you get back to work. So you'll get back to work on Monday and you'll go to the powers that be and you'll tell them about your ideas for change. And they're going to say, Wow, that sounds fantastic. Here's all the resources you need. We're going to give you some extra staff. And you know what? We love hearing women's ideas. And you know why? Because we're listeners. Okay, so let's get back to reality. How do we truly make change? How do we get past the resistance that we are likely to face when we go back to work and share our ideas that we've garnered over these past magical days? How do you make this week a real transformation and not just that week you totally got off your low-carb diet? Today, I want to share with you how we can create real change, implement our ideas, even when we see resistance, even when it might not be popular, by leading with courage, compassion, and connectedness. Because leading is about taking people somewhere they wouldn't go without you. That's what it means to be a leader, to assist people to do something that's uncomfortable, that's scary, that might be unpopular. Now, some of you might be looking at me and thinking, what's the lady with the hijab, the headgear, the shmata, speaking about empowerment? This is a Women's Leadership Institute, not the Wife Submissiveness Training Course. Okay, I get it. There's a lot of women in this room who have faced stereotypes. But I, unfortunately, have to face them every day. I can understand where these come from. These perceptions are not hard to get. I've seen the images of women who look like me walking 6 feet behind men or getting beaten for showing an inch of flesh. Muslim women in hijab aren't quite what you come up with when you think empowerment. Now, I don't blame you. A recent study found that in 2015, news coverage of Muslims and Islam was 90% negative. Another study found that over the past 25 years, the New York Times portrayed Islam worse than cancer and cocaine. Cocaine. Such a lie, because Islam totally doesn't make you lose weight. The media is just so misleading. Now, on top of that, most Americans say they've never met a Muslim. It's like people don't talk to their Uber drivers. So it's hardly a show-stopping shock that Muslims, especially Muslim women, have an image problem. After all, what do you see when you look at me? An expert? A woman of faith? Maybe even a sister? Or oppressed, brainwashed, a terrorist? Yet, here I am. I'm standing before you. I'm choosing to identify as a member of the least warmly regarded religious community in America, according to surveys, in this political climate. And I'm not scared. Well, I'm a little nervous, actually, being up here. But most of all, I'm determined. I'm determined to make change. And I believe that my story can help you get your ideas across, face stereotyping, and speak your truth, even when it's not popular. Believe me, I know. You see, I'm a mom, I'm a coffee lover, I'm an introvert, I'm a wannabe fitness fanatic, and I'm also a spiritual practicing Muslim. But not as Lady Gaga says, because baby, I wasn't born this way. It was a choice. When I was 17 years old, living in the Midwest, no, not the Middle East, I came out. not as a gay person like some of my friends, but as a Muslim, and started wearing hijab, my head covering. Some of my feminist friends were aghast. Why are you oppressing yourself? The funny thing was, my choice was actually a feminist declaration of independence from the pressures that I saw put on women to conform to an impossible standard of beauty. But most of all, it was about choosing conscience over conformity. And this simple decision helped me break an internal barrier of fear to do a lot of things that took courage. Plus, dressing this way has its advantages. For example, travel is always stressful for everyone, right? And we're all random, but some of us are more random than others. So I get a free full-body massage, courtesy of TSA, anytime I travel. And then in the summer, when I'm outside, I get lots of compliments. Like people say, wow, you look hot. And I'm like, well, I have been working out, so yeah, thank you. But here's the thing. I didn't just passively accept the faith of my parents. I wrestled with the Quran. I questioned, I read and reflected and doubted and ultimately believed. My relationship with God, it wasn't love at first sight, but a trust and slow surrender that deepened with every reading of the Quran. Its rhythmic beauty resonated deep inside my soul. Its stories speak to me. The Quran makes me feel like God knows me. Have you ever felt like someone knows you, totally sees you, and yet loves you anyway? That's how it feels. So practicing and identifying with my faith was a deliberate decision born out of reflection, not just convention. So I graduated from college with a degree in chemical engineering, and that's because I'm an Egyptian, and that's what we do. I joined Procter & Gamble as an engineer. I got married. I had my first baby. Then later I went to business school and eventually joined Gallup as a management consultant. Now, about a year into my job at Gallup, and Matt, told you a little bit about this, I got this huge opportunity to move to DC and head the Gallup Center for Muslim Studies. Oh my God, it was my dream job. I couldn't believe this was my life. So I was 9 months pregnant. Yes, 9 months. It was actually 9 months. I moved a week before my due date. With my second baby, and me and my husband and our son all moved our lives to DC, where I could start my brand new amazing job. And then like 3 days into it, I was invited to my very first Washington, DC policy forum. Oh my God. Look, Ma, I'm in DC, and I'm speaking to policymakers at a real think tank, just like the big kids. And she says, we're very proud of you, Habibti. I'm gonna call your grandmother so she can pray for you. And then I read the rest of the email, and I realized I was gonna need some prayers. Because the other two speakers are extremely popular, but extremely Islamophobic pundits who basically make a living generating prejudice against people who look and pray like me. And they were big shots. They were on TV every day. They had best-selling books. And then me, and that's it. 3 people, them and then me. Wow. I haven't had, at this time, a single TV appearance. I didn't even know I was going to write a book, let alone publish one later in that job. I had never spoken anywhere outside a classroom. I was brand new, a nerdy engineer who was fresh out of business school, with a job that I really didn't think, if I were honest, I could do or even deserved. But somehow, I was there, and God had put me there, and he was saying, as if he was telling me, look, you asked to be used to make a difference. So here it is. Be careful what you pray for. Have you ever had to show up and just do something that terrorized you? So on top of it, as I said, I was very pregnant. It was July, and nothing I owned fit me anymore. In fact, just that week, someone had asked me if I was having twins. I wasn't. So this negative voice that I think we all kind of know was in my head. How are you going to do this? These people are so mean, and they're going to outnumber you. They're better than you. They know how to talk. They have more experience at this. They're going to make you look like an idiot in front of your boss, in front of everyone. You'll probably get fired, and you haven't even unpacked yet. I should just say no. But wait a minute. This was a really big deal. This was an important venue and an influential audience, and our research could help change a critical conversation by replacing misinformation with evidence. I was a survey researcher leading Gallup's work on Muslim-majority countries globally. Now, what that means is I got to hear ordinary people tell the world what they really thought, and then to take that information to leaders. And then it hit me. This was just way bigger than me. This was about giving invisible people a voice. People who had often been discussed but seldom heard from. And I could bring their voice, their point of view, to the policy forums of Washington. Isn't that what I was here to do? I could give them a seat at the table. So after throwing up, I took a deep, big girl breath and said, okay, this is a policy discussion. I'm a researcher at Gallup. I know my stuff. I have my data and my evidence, and all they have is hype and bigotry. This is about being true to the research. And I know every point they're gonna make because they're always on TV. And they have no idea what I'm gonna say because no one knows who I am. So my weakness is my strength. So I dug in. I did what I do. I studied. I researched and watched every video they had done. I read every article they had written. It wasn't really that hard because I quickly found they repeated the same talking points. Essentially, Islam oppresses women, destroy Islam, liberate women. I wouldn't give them the prize for originality, but I had to admit the message was simple, and it was very easy to believe in the current climate at the time. Of course, not now, but at the time, that was easy to believe. But the Gallup data actually painted a totally different picture. The research showed that Muslim women around the world absolutely wanted equality, and they didn't think they had it right now. And so they were working to bring about a more just order. But here's the thing, they didn't blame their religion. They didn't want to eliminate it for liberation. Quite the opposite. They saw it as a source of empowerment. So, okay, I had my facts, I had my arguments, I had my Lane Bryant maternity suit, and I was ready. I got to the venue and scanned the audience. The room was full. It was exactly as I had imagined, Washington policy circles. Everyone looked important. They were wearing boxy suits, and no one was smiling. The moderator began. He introduced all of us. The other two panelists were authors, and they had appeared on Oprah. They had won moral courage awards, and obviously, from the applause, had some groupies in the room. And me. My bio basically read nerd from Gallup. I would speak last. I sat and listened to both of them say exactly what I had expected, and the audience nodded thoughtfully. I heard them deliver carefully rehearsed applause lines, which I had seen half a dozen times in their videos, and what do you know? They got applause. The audience was eating it up. And then it was my turn. The pregnant lady with the headscarf, barely fitting into my suit. My voice was shaking as I began, but I kept speaking, building my argument, delivering my data points. And then my voice got stronger, more dynamic, even persuasive. I had anticipated every point they made and had counter evidence to refute it. I not only dismantled their flawed narrative, but I offered a compelling counter explanation with real evidence-based solutions, things like education and human development as alternatives to just demonizing people. The audience was turning. People started nodding, even taking notes, even laughing at my rare joke. I was winning them over. Near the end, one of the other panelists even seemed to concede actual defeat and said, "Next time, I'll have some data of my own." After the panel, a prominent journalist in the room came up to me and said that was the most compelling presentation she had heard on the topic. Several people asked for my card. It was my induction into the DC policy community. Wow, I had done it. Data won over demonization. I called my mom. I did it, Mama. People loved it. I took a risk, and it was all reward and no cost, right? Wrong. A few days later, I got called into my CEO's office. That's right, not my boss, the boss. Wow, here I am, only a few days, and I'm already going to get a promotion and a raise. So I walked in, and he looked serious. He said, "I got an email today about that presentation you gave a few days ago." Wow, more praise, I thought. The woman who had written was a very prominent operative in DC, not just a concerned random person. And she was married to a very, very, very high-level government official. He reads the letter out loud to me. It had phrases like, "I just wanted you to know what was being said in your name," and proselytizing about Islam in a way that has nothing to do with Gallup. I froze. Oh my God, what did I do? I've shamed my company. I've embarrassed my CEO. I knew I should have signed that month-to-month lease. And then he says to me, "I was there. You represented our research and our company with excellence." So how often have you not spoken because you thought what you had to say was unpopular? How often have you kept quiet because what you have to say may cause trouble or contradicts convention or the opinion of a very powerful person in the room? How many times have you had that moment when you had to think, do I be quiet or do I speak? Do I play it safe or do I take a risk? Well, I'm not here to tell you that the outcome is always terrific, but there are things you can do to empower your message. First, it's preparation. Know your stuff. Do your homework. Research the resistance. Anticipate your opposition's strongest points. Then take them down one by one with facts. Second, form allies. Don't try to do this alone. Involve others. Find others that are going to support you, your vision of change. My CEO in this case was an ally. He knew the research I was presenting, and he was in the room when I delivered it. Never forget that it's bigger than you. Courage doesn't come from having no fear. I had a ton of fear. Courage comes from the realization that some things are just more important than fear. And then have generosity for your audience, not a sense of need. Here's what I mean by that. And I think this is really, really important. We often approach those who we are trying to engage or even convince from a place of need, of wanting them to accept our point of view, or maybe even to accept us. And it's really the opposite. It's the other way around. It's you who has something to give them. You have a better future to give them, a better way to run a business to give them, a more inclusive, vibrant workplace to give them. Approach them from this position of generosity, not from a position of need. And the dynamic completely changes. Truth is, had I not risked embarrassing myself that day and alienating myself from my new professional community, I would not be speaking here today. It was my CEO's encouragement after that episode that led me to my current career. It was my delivery at that forum that brought about dozens of other speaking engagements, media interviews, and the opportunity to write a book with my lifelong hero, Professor John Esposito. If I hadn't taken that risk, I wouldn't have gotten to give a TED Talk or went on The Daily Show or gotten to advise a president. And you know what? This is the first time I've told this story. And there's a reason for that. I'm scared. I'm scared that they'll come after me. They'll send their trolls and harass me on Twitter. So the truth is, making these kinds of choices, do I speak or do I stay silent? Do I stand or do I sit? You don't just make them once. You keep making them, and it never gets easier. So next time in a meeting, when someone who is more powerful than you, more popular than you, says something that you know is not true, and everyone is nodding and smiling, what will you do? Will you be silent, or will you take a risk and speak up? One of the reasons I was scared to do that forum is, frankly, I was afraid of getting bullied in front of the whole world. And a lot of us have bullies in our lives. Some are other people, but a lot of the times it's our inner voice, our inner bully, the one that berates us, that tells us our dreams are being selfish, that tells us our failures are something to be ashamed of, that says that because we haven't achieved that promotion yet, or that magic weight loss yet, or we haven't written that book yet, we should just give up. It beats us up for not being smarter and quicker and funnier and richer. We imagine the stare of history. We picture this jury judging our every move. And we need to stand up to this inner bully, because we take berating and abuse from that inner voice that we wouldn't accept from anyone else. We need to actually start by practicing self-compassion. Let's befriend that person that we've been berating for so long and commit to progress, not perfection. Am I making progress toward my goal? Am I in a better place today than I was a year ago or 10 years ago? If the answer is yes, then keep at it and move forward. If the answer is no, that's okay. Instead of insulting yourself, search for life-giving moments. ask yourself, when was the last time you felt fully alive, engaged in what you were doing? How did it feel? How did it look like? What did it smell like? And then how do you multiply those moments right now? Look for success and learn from it as the beginning of self-compassion. Change is also about approaching those who follow you and your peers with compassion. Now, some of you might be thinking compassion sounds kind of soft, like you might not be taken seriously. Here's the thing. All the research points in the opposite direction. Compassionate workplaces are in fact the ones that create brave spaces where people can bring their full selves to work, where they can take risks and make breakthroughs. Google wanted to figure out what made their best teams more productive and more innovative. So they did what Google does, and they did massive amounts of research on all of their employees, about 100,000 of them. And they looked at all of these different teams and a bunch of different variables, age and gender and race and level of experience and education. And then they gave everybody surveys about how they were feeling at work and their perception of their team to find out what made the most productive teams different from everyone else. And here's what they found. Teams that created brave spaces were more innovative, more productive, had better retention than any other kind of team. That was the key ingredient. They were places where people felt safe taking risks, where people spoke their mind without a lot of second thoughts. They were devoting their energy into their work rather than second-guessing themselves or their coworkers. It was a place of high trust. So Google wanted to multiply these teams, and remarkably, they instituted a very simple practice where every week in each work team, people would just go around and share a risk that they had taken the week before to start to strengthen this culture of being safe to be wrong. Compassionate leadership creates the culture for courage and for change. And making real change requires not only courage and compassion, but an investment in our collective progress by recognizing our connectedness. Here I am talking about amplifying each other's work, seeking mentorship, and investing in diversity. So first, how do we amplify each other's work, and why should we? It really starts with a collaborative versus zero-sum paradigm, where my success depends on your success, not your failure. Promoting your work makes me stronger, not weaker. Recently, high-ranking women in the Obama administration shared a powerful tip of how women get ahead in this male-dominated work atmosphere. They did something very simple, which is just help other women. To avoid one of the primary pitfalls that many women face in the workplace, not getting their voices heard or saying an idea and having a man take credit for it, the women did something called amplification. This is very simple. They would repeat an idea a female colleague had had and then give her credit for it by name. The impact was not only that one woman was able to break through, but that many women were. And eventually, women were more likely to be seen as valuable, contributing members of the team and got credit for what they contributed. So in your next meeting, try this. Seek out ways to promote other women's work. Talk about what other women have accomplished on your team. Repeat women's ideas and give them credit. I noticed that when I made this investment in my workplace, it was actually reciprocated very quickly by other women. That's what women do. They sort of sense things and then they reciprocate. And then even men did it. And it sort of then became like a subculture in our meetings where instead of tearing each other down, we would brag about each other's work. And it only takes one person to begin this. You know, I made a point that anytime I would have a high-profile appearance or opportunity, I would wear a dress created by a women entrepreneur, and then I would promote her business in my social media outreach afterwards. When I appeared on Trevor Noah, I wore this dress, and I was proud to promote the woman's business that had created it. Helping me with this speech was a coach named Judy Carter, who is an amazing speech and comedy coach. And I want to share proudly her name with you as a way to practice this simple practice of promoting other women's work. Making positive change despite resistance means seeking alliances, advice, and networks from more senior people and from across your company, while building a pipeline of talent yourself. So what I'm talking about here is seeking and providing mentorship. You know, growing up and beginning my career, I didn't have a lot of role models that looked like me. So it was one of my personal goals to provide this to other women wherever I could. To be able to tell them that no matter their background, no matter what they looked like, or where their parents were from, they could do whatever they wanted. They could be whoever they wanted to be. And if I could do it, they could do it. What I realized in the process, as young women approached me for mentorship, is that they blew me away. Advising them felt like such a privilege, not a burden. I feel like I'm investing in the future. It's a little like parenting, but with an eager and receptive human being on the other end. So actually, no, it's actually nothing like parenting, never mind. Mentoring other women energizes me because I feel like I'm making a real impact. Building this pipeline of talent helps me succeed. And the benefits of having a mentor are well known. Increases your self-esteem, helps you learn to better control your career, teaches you how to speak up and be heard. It educates you on how to accept feedback. It improves your interpersonal skills. It provides you access to a more senior network. And probably most importantly, it helps you navigate your organization's culture of unspoken rules, both critical for success. So invest in seeking out a mentor. Honestly, most of my mentors have actually been men, perhaps because the nature of the policy world is so male-dominated. I mention this because of the importance of male allies in improving the workplace for women's leadership. But also, seek each other out. Peer-to-peer mentorship is powerful. Before leaving here, find someone else that's going to be your accountability partner, your peer mentor. And you guys are going to promise to check in with each other in a month and maybe in 6 months, minimum, to talk about your progress and your pain as you try to make change. Remind each other of the sense of empowerment you feel right now. And then invest in diversity. Better environments for women are inextricably linked to better environments for people of color, the LGBTQ community, and religious minorities. Inclusive cultures that value diversity aren't just good for the soul, They are good for the bottom line. A recent study by McKinsey found that the return on equity was 53% higher on average for companies ranked in the top quarter of executive board diversity, while profit margins were 14% higher on average. So why are companies that prioritize diversity and inclusion, why are they performing better? Well, a Harvard Business School study wanted to find this. What they discovered was that companies that make diversity a priority are less prone to groupthink. Paul Block, the CEO of Mercant, sums it up really well by saying, people with different lifestyles and different backgrounds challenge each other more. Diversity creates dissent, and you need that. Without it, you're not going to get deep inquiry and breakthroughs. Dissent prevents organizations from becoming too inwardly focused and out of touch with the increasingly diverse customer base as a result. Working teams are able to have wider range solutions. Inclusive workspaces also know how to attract and retain diverse talent. Perhaps most importantly, research suggests that companies that really emphasize the values of inclusion themselves have diverse workplaces, but also tend to appeal to a wider customer base and supplier base. So you'll all go back to work on Monday with fresh eyes. You'll see your organization, while familiar, in a brand new way. Now, it's going to be exhilarating, but also really scary. And as you work to make change, there are going to be good days and bad days. You'll find allies where you never expected them, and some friends will probably also disappoint you. Some days you're going to feel invincible, and other days you're going to feel defeated. Leadership is a lot of things, but comfortable is not one of them. But you're going to keep going because it's too important not to. There has never been a time when we needed courageous, compassionate, connected leaders more than we need them right now. In our organizations, in our communities, in our nation. The work starts now. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Dalia. Thank you. This has been a week where we have been called upon to think of a lot. I love Dalia's suggestion about being a compassionate leader. I think all of you have been that this week, and I encourage you to continue to be that when you return to the office. You all have been with me on my own leadership journey this week, and I thank you for your openness, your honesty, and for sharing of yourselves with me, with everyone from Linkage, and with one another. I look forward to continuing this journey with you. As you know, you're about to embark on your year of learning with us, and I look forward to sharing that with you over the course of the year.
Oh, endings are just no fun, but what's true is this is just the beginning. Invitation. Our invitation to you is to use some of the goodies that Linkage has provided and will provided by way of our blog, our newsletter, and the daily reflections this week, and the surprise we have for you that's going to be ending our week. Use these. Here's how, and here's my invitation to all of you. If you take the surprise we have for you at the end of this week and share it, each of you, with 10 women in your organization, there'll be 8,000 women who receive the gift of inspiration that you've received this week. If you ask them to then ask 10 more people to share this gift, we have 80,000 women. And if 80,000 women share it with 10 people, we have 1 million women inspired, invigorated. These 1 million women couldn't be in this room, but they get the gift that you pay forward because you were in this room. With that, we'd like to close with this, and thank you so much for being with us this week. Welcome to the Women in Leadership Institute. You are now part of an alumna base from every continent around the world.
Congratulations. It is a big deal that you are here. And that is something to be proud of, and that is definitely something to celebrate here this week.
What might be your vulnerability? What we find is that those who have the greatest multiplying effect on their teams aren't the ones who are these raging multipliers. It's the ones who are aware.
I will be an inspirational leader who encourages women to step up. I will be clear.
I will be bold.
I will be revolutionary.
I will be influential.
I will be inspiring. I will be a multiplier.
Meeting, and then another meeting, and then another meeting, and then another meeting, and then another meeting, and finally a lunch conference call on which you have to spend the entire time listening to the typing and sandwich eating of the one person who forgot to hit mute.
I'm going to tell you what would be possible. Are you ready? Your life would change for the better, and the lives around you would change for the better.
Fear has no place in your success equation. If you want to maximize your success, you must expect and strategize to win. I thank you, and the floor is now yours.
You are doing the best you can. Welcome to being perfectly imperfect, and you're enough and you matter.
You're connecting with one another. You're inspiring one another. You're influencing one another. You're being bold and putting yourself out there. You're being clear. You're becoming aware. You're learning more about yourself, and you're sharing that with one another.
Emotion is like the one-night stand of influence. Believe in yourself. Choose to influence. Choose to lead. We need you all. Thank you very much.